There you go. It's up and running. We'll give a couple minutes for people to come in here. For those who are just following right now, I am trying to, I don't know if it's break Twitter, but test it. I'm actually running the encoder simultaneously. So I'm streaming to Twitter while also hosting a Twitter space and just trying to see if that has any impact, positive or negative. Okay, yeah, I think I got everything ready. And by the way, to all of you, I just want to wish you a good morning and an amazing morning to all of you. I think and I hope this is going to be the best Saturday morning, late morning in many parts of the country, but the best Saturday morning of your life. And I'm going to do my best to make that happen. Today's going to be a little bit funny, but this is the Freedom Coffee live stream where we celebrate our freedoms, the freedoms that we fought for. And we look to expanding those freedoms in the future and share different ideas and share, different perspectives with people and sometimes even political strategies, which I did in a Twitter space last week with some people in England. And I'll talk more about that in the near future. Please like, share, and subscribe. Today's a beautiful day, no matter where you are. I don't care how bad the weather is. It's absolutely beautiful. And that's because spring is right around the corner. We're almost there. I see, looking outside my balcony at downtown, and you can see there's life coming back. And I hope you're all having that same sort of experience. Before we get into kind of the topics that I have here today, I asked this yesterday. Okay, why is there music? Hold on. There's end the music. Wait, no, I don't want to end the space. Hold on one second. I'm having. Okay. All right. So for everybody who is on Twitter, I am right now. I thought the mic was on. I'm trying to do my best to test Twitter to see how far it'll go. I am simultaneously streaming from the encoder to Twitter and running a space at the same time. This is just a little test for Political Bitcoin Hour for myself and Brandon, because we are going to be rolling this into something larger after my next podcast launches in the next couple of months. By the way, possiblycorrect.com. I don't talk about it very often, but that is the name of my podcast company. All right, so I asked a question yesterday, and this is before we get into the main topics. What happened to the trucker convoy to Texas? What happened to that? Remember that convoy that was going to fight for our freedoms, protect the border, all that sort of stuff? It just died, didn't it? It just went nowhere. That has happened in Canada 5 times since the Freedom Convoy. Maybe cooler heads prevailed. People realized it was a trap, and potentially there were people involved in the government trying to set them up. Because in the case of Canada, every time Trudeau slid in the polls massively, the way Joe Biden has done recently, all of a sudden there's calls for another convoy to nowhere. We have to have another convoy. What's the goal? I don't know, but let's just have a convoy because we're angry. So that is all a good indicator in my world that something might have nefarious ambitions. And I'm glad to hear that, at least I'm assuming this, that people didn't take the bait, realized it was a trap. And maybe they went down and saw the governor and went back. But you notice there was no coverage, alternative media, direct from people on the ground. It just kind of fizzled out and died out. And then we had this New York boycott last week, which, by the way, that's where I drive. I'm usually in Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, that sort of area. And I didn't see much boycotting going on. So anyways, before I get into my article on Substack and in the National Telegraph from yesterday, I just want to preface this with an idea. Some of you know that I had lived in South America for quite some time, and I go back there frequently despite my broken Spanish because I speak like a gringo. And by the way, a shout out to the girls in Arizona. Gracias por todo. Ustedes me encanta todo y qué pena porque mi acento es malo. Yo hablo como un gringo. Pero that's just the way it is. But I'm trying. Anyways, before I get into this topic, I lived in and spent a lot of time in South America, in Colombia predominantly. Colombia and Mexico quite a lot, but Colombia is what's relevant here. When I read many books on the topic of the narcos and have many friends that were living there during that time, and it's astonishing how many people during the era of Pablo Escobar would just say, oh, he's just a wonderful person. He's just a businessman. Oh, he's not involved in anything nefarious. No matter how much evidence there would be to show the opposite, it just, no matter what, people would go along with the lie, with the narrative, for a whole bunch of reasons. People have all sorts of different pressure points, and I get that. But people often live in this space where truth really doesn't matter. And we're going to get onto that in a second, because I did write this article yesterday in my Substack and in the National Telegraph. Now, the name of the article is 𝐈𝐈 Bukele, I am a radical leftist. Now, that is a quote from 𝐈𝐈 Bukele, which I go on to explain in the article. And by the way, the subtitle is, and this was the whole point of it, you figure people would realize this, CPAC keynote speaker, self-proclaimed radical leftist, how did this happen? Now, the reason that's important, it's not about your political or my political perspective if we think the left or right divide is expired and no longer relevant, which in many cases it's not. But that's the whole point of a conference like CPAC, is to solidify this left or right paradigm that we're living in. That is the conservative part of the left-right paradigm. It's CPAC. That's its whole purpose. So why would they have a self-proclaimed radical leftist? How did that happen? Now, I'm sure many people's heads are exploding right now and saying, well, what are you talking about? That's why you need to read the article. But I'm just going to explain it so you understand and go on to the whole issue of cognitive dissonance and how much of it is out there and how to spot it. So there was an interview done by the Huffington Post with 𝐈𝐈 Bukele from 2012 when he was mayor of a smaller town, and he made repeated claims, and this is not out of context. Like everything, the context is self-evident because he's so determined in what he says. He makes many of these comments saying, and I'll read a couple of them here in front of you, just so you know. He says, "Estoy de izquierda." I'll translate in a second, but just so you know, these are his words. "Toda la vida he sido de izquierda y mi pensamiento es de izquierda." He said izquierda 3 times. That means left. "Yo no veo otra opción más que el FMLN," that's the name of the party, "que es la única expresión de la izquierda en El Salvador." The translation for that is, I am a leftist. All my life I have been a leftist, and my thinking is leftist. I do not see another option but the FMLN, which is the only expression of the left in El Salvador. Okay? So I've included 4 more quotes like that, and he's very, very strident in how much of a supporter of the left he is. And the whole premise of the article is just to ask, why would CPAC, an organization that lives in the right side of the left-right political paradigm, why would they host somebody who has repeatedly asserted that he is a leftist and has been a leftist his entire life, and it's the only philosophy or expression that he believes in? Why would they put him on stage and try to sell this to the rest of the world that he's conservative? Now, why would Tucker Carlson do that? I asked that in the piece, because look, we know corruption is an issue all over Latin America. Listen, I lived under it, so I get it. And where I lived, we had paramilitaries, narcotraficos, whatever. So like I get it, but at the end of the day, there is still a right-wing conservative party in El Salvador, which would be aligned with the values of what CPAC says that they stand for. Why would they have this self-proclaimed leftist as a speaker? That's the whole premise of the article. All right. Now, how did people respond to that? Well, surprisingly, a lot of people liked, a lot of likes for the article, a lot of private messages to me, a number of messages saying, thank God somebody's finally speaking about this, which I really appreciated. So those are the people that aren't necessarily suffering the cognitive dissonance, or perhaps they're aware on the ground what's going on in El Salvador, right? But what happens to the people who are so entrenched in a belief system that they just can't see the evidence that's right in front of them? This is a problem in the modern world we all deal with. I mean, Bitcoiners deal with this a lot, because you try to explain the real attributes of money and people slip into cognitive dissonance, right? And let's be honest, life wouldn't be fun if some people didn't slip into cognitive dissonance. Good morning, Jess. You're not late. I love you. I'm glad to have you here. You're amazing. And Jess is saying hello in the encoder. All right. So, and this is a common thing. It's so easy to predict. It's just regular human behavior. This is the human being operating system, and all of us can fall victim to this. Me included. All of you, all of us. So, in the case of people who they have a rooted belief system, let's say maybe the fiat system, whatever it is, when you show them direct evidence, pieces of paper, quoting them directly, like Diverge Media has quoted Tamara Leach and some of the others who basically admit in their books that they helped sell out the Freedom Convoy. You show them the evidence, they can't process it. They just can't. When we're married to a belief system, we hold on to that belief system no matter what. And so this is something that Scott has come up with, Scott Adams. He really takes kind of Cialdini's work and he takes it to the next level in terms of how he explains it and simplifies the concepts to people. It's amazing. So what he's come up with, and it's so accurate. It's so accurate every time. It's hysterical. And I'm going to read some examples that you're going to like. What happens when you not challenge somebody, but you show them a piece of evidence that refutes a belief system, they slip into the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, right? And those 7 signs of cognitive dissonance are this. 1, they will change the topic. 2, they'll automatically jump to an ad hominem and they'll attack you. Number 3, mind reading. Number 4, a word salad. They'll just respond with something very long that doesn't go anywhere. They'll give you, number 5, they'll give you an analogy instead of a reason, not a reason that's supported by an analogy. That's an important distinction. They'll tell you it's too complicated to explain. Or number 7, made famous by Jordan Peterson and Kathy Newman, they'll do the "so you're saying" strongman. Okay? So, number 1, just to review, 7 signs of cognitive dissonance: change the topic, attack you, mind reading, word salad, analogy instead of reason, too complicated to explain, the "so you're saying" straw man. And listen, the ability for us to slip into cognitive dissonance is amazing. He did a poll, I remember, that was, yes, once you learn this is how human beings operate, it becomes much more easy to communicate, which, by the way, this is all stuff I knew prior to the Freedom Convoy, which is why I messaged in a certain way to not just alternative media, but in all my interviews and stuff. There's a certain tactic I was using in messaging people to bring people together, which, you know, the political nerds don't understand because they don't understand human behavior. Okay, so the article explains that in Bukele's own words, he is a radical leftist. I also explained that he founded Nueva Ideas, is the name of the party, New Ideas. That's not exactly, it doesn't matter where you are in the political spectrum, but we can all know whether you're left or right, center, libertarian, or whatever. New Ideas is not necessarily within the conservative framing. The conservative framing is traditional values, right? So, and that they also happen to be the left-wing party in El Salvador. The center left-wing party is what they're supposed to be. All right. So how did people respond? Well, there's a whole group of people that gave likes and thank you for bringing this up. Then I have 4 examples. I love these. These are so good. And the key is not to take it personally. I don't take it personally because, again, this is the human being operating system. This is how human beings react. And this is also all emotionally driven because they're slipping into cognitive dissonance and they cannot process these ideas that are in contravention to what they believe personally. All right. So number 1, this first, I don't know if this is the order. I was just jotting them down, but this is let's say number 1 of the messages I got. Okay. This one, I think this was an email or on Twitter. I think this was Twitter. All right. Now remember, this is Bukele's own words being quoted in an article in the Huffington Post, and his party, Nueve Ideas, is the left-wing party. So just asking the question, why 𝐶PAC would host a self-proclaimed leftist. This is what he says. Fake news. Do some research. His political philosophy has moved to the center, was reelected to the 2nd term in a landslide victory, and is one of the most popular leaders in El Salvador in recent memory. All right, so you have the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance. Which of those 7 signs of cognitive dissonance is this statement? I'll read it again. Fake news, do some research. His political philosophy has moved to the center, was reelected to 2nd term in landslide victory, and is one of the most popular leaders in El Salvador in recent memory. You want to guess? I'll tell you what I think it is. If you're in the chat, I can see on the encoder, you can just type your response there. But this is what I see. I see a whole bunch of things from the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance. I see number 1, which is to change the topic, right? He won a 2nd term in a landslide victory. That's not my argument. I'm asking why 𝐶PAC invited a radical leftist. Number 2 is the ad hominem, fake news. You know, you're lying is what that says. Number 4, there's a little bit of word salad. It's not too much, but there's a touch of word salad. And number 6, there's a little sprinkling of it's too complicated to explain, right? His political philosophy has moved to the center, was reelected a 2nd term in a landslide victory, and this is one of the most popular leaders in Salvador in recent memory. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of word salad and too complicated to explain. So I don't remember the name of the Twitter account that posted that, but I want to thank you for reading and thank you for your input. I greatly appreciate it. And all of this, the reason I'm talking about this, and we'll get to this in the end, this is why truth is not important with the human operating system. And this is the problem we're dealing with today. All right. Number 2. Number 2 of my favorite comments to my piece in the National Telegraph and on my Substack from President Bukele, titled, Nayib Bukele, I'm a radical leftist, 𝐶PAC keynote speaker, self-proclaimed radical leftist. How did this happen? All right. Number 2 is, oh wait, I just lost the page. No, I got it here. All right. I don't like to read notes. Usually I go kind of, I go kind of ad lib, but this time I gotta read the quotes. I want to make sure the people who are attacking me that I quote them accurately. All right, number 2. Now remember, 7 signs of cognitive dissonance. Which ones are these? Whoever believes that Bukele said that is more stupid than the one who made it up. Exclamation point. So good. See, once you understand that these attacks that all of you receive online, that it's really kind of NPC programming, it's just how we naturally react when we get emotional. I think that at that point we don't take it personally. At least I don't, right? Which is why I want you all to understand this, because I know so many people who are sending me messages, they get attacked all the time and they get upset. And I'm like, I don't know why you get upset. I think this is hysterical. All right, so let's go over this. On the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, which are change topic, attack, mind reading, word salad, analogy instead of reason, too complicated to explain, the so you're saying straw man. Which of these 7 are, who believes that 𝐕𝐃𝐒 said that, is more stupid than the one who made it up? Now, a reminder, this is the article has his quotations. It's him saying it, and the context is self-evident because they're long quotes, right? They're not short quotes. So he explains himself in his full context. But this person doesn't believe that the quotes that 𝐕𝐃𝐒 said himself are the quotes that 𝐕𝐃𝐒 said himself. Okay, good. So I would suggest, of the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance, that is number 2 and number 6. So that's an ad hominem, right? Whoever believes that is more stupid than the one who made it up. And I guess it could be somewhere between changing the topic and too complicated to explain, right? Whoever believes that, well, yeah, maybe that's too complicated to explain. I would say number 2 and number 6. So whoever sent that message, I want to thank you. I appreciate the engagement, and thank you for reading. I don't know, I wish you told me if you saw it on either the Substack or on the National Telegraph, which is the nationaltelegraph.com, by the way. But thank you. All right, number 3 in how people react to factual information, quoting an individual in full context, saying that he defines himself as a radical leftist. All right. Number 3, the guy saved the country. Who gives an F, right or left? Maybe he should let the gang members out. You're clueless. Okay. All right. So what are that of the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance? I'll repeat it. Okay. The guy saved his country. Who gives an F, right or left? Maybe he should let the gang members out. You're clueless. All right. So first thing, I nor anybody else has suggested he should let any gang members out, right? So there's your tell for cognitive dissonance. The you're clueless, that's number 2, the ad hominem. That's how you can tell people are really, really emotional when they do the personal attacks. That's how you know you've gotten to them. And by the way, that often is an advantage when you're trying to pull somebody out of cognitive dissonance, or you're trying to get the audience around that person to listen. Sometimes it's strategically advantageous to get somebody to try to attack you, right? Because it kind of outs themselves as not being rational and logical in their discourse, right? So I think the guy saved his country. Well, my problem, a little asterisk, and I'll be writing more articles about this, by the way. He didn't save the country. Alejandro saved the country. The Bitcoin was Alejandro. Alejandro was the Bitcoiner, not 𝐕𝐃𝐒. Alejandro advocated to his brother, and over time, he had to convince 𝐕𝐃𝐒 to adopt Bitcoin. So I know dirtbag politicians want to take the credit for other people's work all the time, but let's not forget, as Bitcoiners, Alejandro is the one who brought Bitcoin to El Salvador and got it on the radar there. Alejandro was also the person behind the idea of jailing all the gangs. That was him, because he was very much a security hawk. For those of you who knew him, you would know that's exactly the case. So the guy saving his country, that's not accurate, but he may not know, so it's not really his fault, right? Who gives an F, right or left? Well, CPAC gives an F, right or left, because it's a right-wing conference. So again, this is not about 𝐕𝐃𝐒. This is about CPAC. Why is CPAC inviting somebody who claims to be a radical leftist to speak at their conservative conference? What is going on here? Like, I know for a lot of people who are not into politics, don't care about politics. Like, believe me, you're the smart ones. Trust me. But people in politics live in these silos, and they're trying to get the rest of us to live in these silos. That's kind of the problem. But why all of a sudden are they bringing somebody who is a radical leftist, who has more in common with Justin Trudeau than anybody on the, and I don't mean their sexual preference, by the way, or I don't just mean that, but why are they bringing somebody who has more in common with Justin Trudeau than any other leader to speak at CPAC? That doesn't make sense. Anyways, so I give that a number 1 and a 2. So changing the topic and the ad hominem at the end, you're clueless, which usually comes at the end, right? That's how you know they're really angry. Like they put out their case, but it's not enough. They don't think they've hurt you. So they need to, try to say something to try to get under your skin. And this is just typical behavior. All right. Number 4, the fourth comment I got about my piece in the National Telegraph and in my Substack Starbucks. I hate Starbucks. You know what that means? I need another sip of coffee. Suze, are you there with the girls in Arizona watching? I hope so. Give them all my best. And tell them thank you for watching regularly. I really appreciate it. You're all amazing. All right, so number 4, I don't know if this is my favorite comment, but this is the most. You talk about cognitive dissonance. This is really up there. It's so good. It's so good. Now remember, the piece is titled "Nayib Bukele, I'm a radical leftist. How did CPAC, invite a radical leftist as their keynote speaker?" And the premise is the whole thesis is about how could CPAC allow a radical leftist like Trudeau to be the speaker at their convention. All right. What I did mention was Tucker Carlson. Like, why did Tucker Carlson introduce this guy to the world as a conservative? He's head of Nueva Ideas. He's the head of the Liberal Party, their version of the Liberal Party. And there's nothing security hawk, great, but anyways. All right, so number 4. This is so good. This is the response. Bullshit. Food prices in Russia are much cheaper and far better quality than Nazi USA. God, it's so good. Also, Russia has not tent cities and overwhelming drug and crime problems. And I just wanted to say, go on. All right. So the response to why is CPAC inviting a radical leftist or self-proclaimed radical leftist as their keynote speaker, and mentioning why, and I asked that question, why did Tucker Carlson ask? And I think I also put a line in there that it's as confusing as Tucker Carlson telling people that food is cheaper in Russia, which is just crazy town. Like, that's basic economics. That would be like me saying, oh, look how much cheaper food is in Colombia, right? Oh, it's only a few $100 to rent an apartment in Colombia. Look how much cheaper it is. Yeah, because they earn 10% of the wages. Like, anyways, whatever. So, what do you think that is? Bullshit. Food prices in Russia are much cheaper, far better quality than Nazi USA. Okay. Also, I didn't realize the Third Reich won the war. Also, Russia has not tent cities and overwhelming drug and crime problems. Well, that's true, because anybody who does engage in that gets really sent to the gulag. And I'm not saying what we're doing in the Western world is correct either. Like, we've become clown world on the other side. But clown world on the other side doesn't make, some of the nefarious concerns on the other side, legitimate, right? Both can be wrong, right? Anyways, so I don't know. Bullshit, I clearly is number 2. That's an ad hominem. Food prices are cheaper in Russia. Well, that's not even understanding the economics either. But perhaps I guess you could discuss that as changing the topic and might be a little sprinkle of too complicated to explain. Not to USA. Well, that's an ad hominem as well. And Russia has not tent cities, overwhelming drug and crime problems. The whole premise was why is CPAC hosting a self-proclaimed radical leftist? That's it, right? Anyways, so all of this is the reason that people who understand this space, understand communications well, try to tell people the facts don't matter. Anybody who thinks, and Bitcoiners do this a lot. This was the premise of my talk in El Salvador, ironically, was that we need to learn how to persuade. And you don't persuade people with facts. You persuade people with reciprocity. You persuade people with social proof. Like there's many other different avenues to go, but just regurgitating facts will never win anyone over on any topic. And that's one of the things we struggle with in Bitcoin, because we kind of we want to communicate, here are the attributes of Bitcoin. And I always focus on the insurance policy and freedom, right? And what it did for us in Ottawa, because it was the only money that couldn't be confiscated by the government, right? Because if I go into the attributes of the financialization and the financial attributes of Bitcoin, most people don't understand that anyways, right? Either they don't understand it or they've bought into the fiat system anyways. So cognitive dissonance, it can be your friend, and it's also what's attacking you online, and why it should be very easy for anybody who listens to this not take it personally when people start attacking you online, because that's just their emotions getting ahead of themselves, because they can't process what you've highlighted to them. All right, next thing, Javier Milei. Fucking, I love this guy. Also, I love about this guy, he's libertarian, but all the social conservatives have no idea his personal background. Not that it matters. I'm libertarian as well. People can do whatever they want. But, the people who are kind of the moral busybodies of politics and want, a certain type of, how should we describe it? A certain type of puritanism in their lives, which Javier Milei does not have at all. God bless him, right? But, anyways, it is what it is. All right. Javier Milei is to introduce a bill to the Argentinian Congress to punish with jail time any central bank official that prints money to finance deficits. So good, they must be going crazy. So if you work for the central bank and you're printing any money to finance deficits, you go to jail. Now, I think it's kind of a moot point, because he does want to dollarize, and the Argentinian, I guess they have an Argentine peso, right? That the Argentine peso it's not quite the bolivar, of which I have a couple of bolivars here. I don't know where they are, but anyways, it's not quite the level of the bolivar, but if things had continued, it would end up turning into the bolivar. So I think if they end up dollarizing, it's kind of a moot point, but it is a good line in the sand to be drawn within Argentina. Like, I'll tell you something about politics, how it works. It's become so international now, like many global corporations, that and this is why you see some of the same messaging from, let's say, in England and the United States. What the political parties do is they farm out all their policy. They farm out much of their polling, which is what informs them on what decision to make. This is where all the corruption is coming from, right? It's like, why is every country bringing in mass migrants, for example? It's because what they do is they go to these strategic management firms, and those firms will put together a product, and that product is basically like in the finance industry. It's an idea of what sort of policies will resonate. Here's the polling that backs up the policy. This is why this will help you get elected in the next election. Well, those firms, which used to be localized from country to country, they're now international. Some of them are based out of DC. Some of them are based out of London. And so they'll be just copying and pasting similar data and similar reports and sending them to different parties in different jurisdictions, right? So that's where a lot of the problem happens today, and that's why you see Build Back Better coming out of Boris Johnson's mouth and then coming out of Joe Biden's mouth. It's not the Illuminati. There's international firms that they subcontract to, and they're just selling them the same product, right? Which is not a way to run a country, in my opinion. But for the people who don't know, the reason this is important, that Javier has put this punishment in place, or is trying to put this punishment in place for people who finance deficits, is, look, on a base level, this is how I like to communicate. That's why a car was $800 100 years ago and now averages $60,000. That's why. Because we've been printing all this money for BS programs, like diversity training. I mean, that's the latest thing, but it started, dental programs, free this, free. Another thing �𝐕𝐈𝐒 made, he instituted a policy that they are no longer allowed in their Congress to address paid programs by that's using taxpayer money. That's no longer allowed to be described as free, because it's not free. It's your money. And it's frustrating that people don't, there's a lot of people who just don't understand this. And, people like myself, and I'm sure many of you out there, I get conflicted. Last night, I'm watching, just before bed, I'm watching a documentary on the SR-72. I like planes and cars. I'm a boy. What can I tell you? And so I'm watching this documentary on the SR-72 Dark Star, which kind of leads from the SR-71, the Blackbird. And it's amazing. Lockheed is investing $1 billion. They think they can deliver a Dark Star plane that will travel at Mach 10. For those of you who watched the Top Gear Maverick, Lockheed was actually a consultant on that movie, and that was the plane. So they think they can deliver a hypersonic Mach 10 plane for $1 billion. And one side of me, the part that loves planes and technology and all this sort of stuff, is like, that's amazing. That's so cool. But wait, that's taxpayer money. wait. No. They can deliver the $1 billion plane with your money. That's your money that they're building this plane with. It's not their money. It's not people in the government out of pocket for it, right? That's why you get such frustration from people in the Bitcoin space, the kind of libertarian space. And it's kind of somebody like me, I can understand both sides, and you have one foot in each door. I love to see the technological innovation, but at the same time, that's not what tax revenue is for, right? And anyways, so I say that because I know amongst my followers, there's a lot of people who are not Bitcoiners. Most of the people who read the article last night about 𝐔𝐍𝐉𝐒, I think I have 80,000 people, email subscribers. Most of them are not Bitcoiners, but this is how we get into this Bitcoin paradigm, and people want this insurance policy and this off-ramp from the current system. And luckily, we have somebody like 𝐔𝐍𝐉𝐒 in Argentina, who is, I think, fighting the good fight and trying to get some economic sanity to get that country back on its feet. And in 12 weeks, he's balanced the budget, something Canada hasn't done for I don't know how many years, as well as many other Western nations. So I don't know about the rest of you. Argentina is definitely on my short list of places to visit, hopefully this year. Anyways. All right, so all of this stuff that we're talking about, I hope I tried to spin a positive light on when people attack you, that you shouldn't take it personally, that they're just emotionally reacting. Oh, and like Scott likes to say on his stream, and he's correct. 80% of people in Twitter and Twitter Spaces, they're drunk. Did you ever think of that? That most of the people are just shit-faced drunk? I remember when I went to England, last time I was there to go on Lotus Eaters and on trigonometry, I woke up, I didn't have to be in the studio until 10 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So before I went, grabbed coffee, and then, came back to the hotel and got on the computer and started doing some working. So what do? I open up Twitter Spaces, and it's all people who are back in North America predominantly. And it's, 2, 3 in the morning. They're all drunk. Everybody's drunk. And then I asked, a bunch of Brits who I know, I said, question for you. When you go on to Twitter, like earlier in the day, do you get the impression that everybody's drunk? And oh yeah, everyone's just shit-faced. So those are not people you should take personally or take seriously. A lot of it is just people venting, suffering cognitive dissonance. and really frustrated about the world politically, because politics is being shoved down our throats constantly all the time. But I think there is cause for positivity. This is when I do my stream. This is the first time I'm doing a stream simultaneously with a Twitter space, just to see if this will work for the political Bitcoin hour. But one of the things I try to always bring up are all the white pills and all the good things that are happening. And do you know what they are? They are everything. There is so much good going on in the world right now, but because we get distracted with the tribalism of politics all the time, we don't come up for air to look at all the good things that are going on. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So first, I don't know if you know, I didn't know this until I read this, I don't know, maybe last year I read a whole a series of articles on this. But one of the most expensive kinds of manufacturing that exists in the modern world is chip manufacturing. Apparently, to set up a chip plant, it's billions of dollars. That's the barrier of entry just to create a plant. That's why there's so few of them. And most of them are in Taiwan, because Taiwan made a massive investment into that sector, right? That's why China can't really invade Taiwan unless it takes over those chip manufacturing plants, which I'm sure would be quickly burned if the Chinese invaded. But anyway, so the barrier of entry into chips is ridiculous. Well, according to MIT research, a popular new open standard called RISC-V, so RISC-V, is upending the power dynamics of chip manufacturing by making it easier for anyone to create a chip. So it's a new form of architecture that allows small startups to be able to get into chip manufacturing. I didn't really understand it, to be entirely honest. There are limitations to my level of intelligence as well. But the idea that's important here is that there's new technology coming down the pipeline to make chip manufacturing obtainable to most countries in the world. Well, that's amazing. Well, there goes your $1,000 or $2,000 cell phone, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, and that will spawn so much new innovation in startups, as startups now can have access to chips that aren't that they can't currently afford, or there's limitations in the market. You saw the market supply of chips during COVID with cars, that there were cars all over North America, thousands of them parked in lots because there was a chip shortage. Well, that would ensure that that's likely never going to happen again. And the other thing I came across was this one, interesting. Scientists are genetically engineering pigs whose organs can be transplanted into humans, and 3D printed lungs using a patient's own cells. So I talked about this a previous stream. There was another technology where it's the tricorder, I guess. It's a device that you can put. They did it with a carcass. They had a dead carcass pig, and it basically 3D printed a heart inside the pig without an incision. It used like some sort of sonic 3D printing stuff, just pretty wild, right? Who knows? But is that going to solve the problem of organ failure with age? It sounds like it. I mean, not this is going to happen tomorrow. Things take a little bit of time. But, you see how quickly Musk is proceeding with Neuralink. Whether you agree with it or not, it's not the point. But how quickly that is moving along, right? Yet we're all being programmed to focus on political parties and political team play. Why? Why? There's so much good going on in the world. I told a friend of mine a while back who was suffering a little bit of anxiety and didn't know really how to deal with it. And we all deal with anxiety in different ways, or you're like me who just doesn't get anxious. But I suggested, you know what you should do anytime you start to feel anxiety? Just go to Google or whatever search engine you use, hopefully a reliable one. By the way, Google AI, so good. But just type in James Webb. And she said to me, why? What's James Webb? I said, just type it in. That's the telescope, the James Webb telescope. And you'll be able to read all these articles about how much discovery is going on in the fields of astronomy and cosmology. But we're all being distracted by these amazing wonders of the universe for political bullshit. That, listen, most of it we can't control. Yeah, people vote or they get involved in politics. You do your best. I think things in general always tend to work things out. You know, I learned from my parents, every generation has its its catastrophic doomsday scenario, right? There was global cooling and nuclear holocaust, you know, during the Cold War. And when I was a kid, it was acid rain is going to kill us. Everything's going to kill us all the time. You know what happens? We kind of get through it. And there's going to be sectarian violence all over the world. That's just human nature, unfortunately. And I don't see that going away anytime soon. But I think it's dramatically reduced. I remember when people were talking about, you know, when Israel was invaded on October 7th, they started talking about, oh, there's going to be world war. World war? What are you, new to the Middle East and Israel? It's not going to be world war. What are you talking about? They're just going to go in, wipe them out, and then yalla, it's just going to move on and back to the way things were. Although in this case, there will be some political change. They'll probably go back to prior to 2005. I'm not going to have a world war. Like, come on. I hope I'm not wrong in that. No, but I don't think so. And maybe I just bias towards towards the positive, and think that people will work things out. And so, yeah, maybe you get too much politics in your life, or your YouTube feed gets full of political crap. What I do is I start going to YouTube and, you know, don't recommend channel, and type in James Webb and look at some mysteries of the universe that might give you a cause for hope. Or if you're a Bitcoiner, start talking to other people about Bitcoin and join a Bitcoin space, or just kind of, you know, delve yourself into something positive that is going to be positive change for the world. So that's it for today. And that is episode 183 of the Freedom Coffee live stream. I hope it was good and positive for all of you. I've been doing this for a little while. I've been really focusing it just on the small group of people in my Discord, just because I'm always busy with other projects and with trucking and the 2 startups I'm involved in and stuff. So I don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to try to do more of this. And if this didn't crash, then perhaps Brandon and I, the next time we do a political Bitcoin hour, perhaps we'll do a similar simulcast, both in video form and in a Twitter space form or something like that. Macro, thanks for being here, brother. I appreciate it. Who else is in here? I don't know. There's been so many people popping in and out. I just haven't been watching it, but I appreciate all of you for coming here. I'm going to shut it all down now, and hopefully we'll all talk in a future space. And if you didn't read the article yet, go to bjdichter.substack.com or go to nationaltelegraph.com. Read the article I posted. By the way, there's a lot more concerning issues around this, more than just, you know, why certain people were invited to speak at CPAC. But I think this is more just about, you know, what's going on behind the scenes, because I have enough experience in politics to know this is highly, highly unusual. So something's up. All right. I love you all. Have an awesome day. And don't forget to be kind to strangers. I say that, I know it's cheesy, but I always found if you're really nice to the barista or the person at the gas station who just has people, you know, treating them like furniture all day, and you just ask how their day is, it does a lot for brightening up their day, and it allows your subconscious to see that you're actually a good person trying to help others. All right. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you all soon. Okay.